I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to CentreCourt, our MBA Admissions Festival. I have in the house today 4 great people representing 4 great MBA programs that are totally world-class. We have Michigan Ross, Duke Fuqua, Yale School of Management, and UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. And let me introduce our 4 panelists from those schools. From Ross, we have Taya Sapp, the Interim Director of Full-Time MBA Admissions. From Duke, Allison Jameson, the Assistant Dean of Admissions. From Yale, a very familiar face, the veteran in the room, Bruce Delmonico, the Assistant Dean for Admissions. And from the Haas School, Cindy Millette, the Senior Associate Director of Full-Time MBA Admissions. Welcome, everybody. Now, even though these schools are well known to everyone, and anyone who's been reading up on an MBA and considering going to full-time programs should be pretty familiar with each of your programs. I'm going to start off by asking each of you to tell me what makes your MBA program stand out. Let's start with Taya at Ross.
Sure. Happy to talk to that. Thanks, John. With Michigan Ross, I think the thing that really makes us stand out is if you learn best by doing, there's tons and tons of opportunities for you to be able to do that. And so we're really known for a program called MAP, which stands for Multidisciplinary Action Projects. It's a 7-week consulting project that every student does at the end of their first year. And it allows people to do consulting projects. So this past year, we had people do a project with Blue Origin, doing a market analysis of the space industry, or a project with Sun Power, figuring out how we can increase solar energy to marginalized communities and what that looks like. So it gives people a really great chance to have this almost an internship before their internship. And I think it's a great tool for career pivots as well. So that's the major thing, but tons of opportunities to do impact. We have a blog that's like my favorite blog. It's 100+ ways to make a social impact while at Ross. So a lot of opportunities in sustainability and impact in healthcare as well.
That's great. So experiential learning, experiential learning, experiential learning.
Exactly. I should get a t-shirt with that.
Not only assignments with companies, but also opportunities to manage different funds, because you have several of those investment funds at the school that are managed by students. Allison, tell us about your MBA program.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Excited to be here today. I think a simple search of Duke Fuqua, you are inevitably going to find the term Team Fuqua, and I think that is the differentiator for us. And it's more than just a marketing slogan. It really is a way of life here at Fuqua, and it touches everything that is done here, from how you learn in the classroom to how you help your classmates grow, how you grow yourself. If you haven't had a chance to hear our Dean Bill Boulding talk about IQ, EQ, and DQ, I would encourage you to do that, because that's one of these pillars of the idea of Team Fuqua. So it's intelligence, emotional intelligence, and also what we call the decency quotient. And that's the DQ part of it. And it is this belief that business is a force for good in the world. So maintaining a high-level perspective, no matter if you are doing nonprofit work or investment banking or brand management, that there's an opportunity to positively influence the world around you. And that really permeates the entire experience at Duke, from classroom learning to experiential learning. And you combine that with the flexibility of the curriculum to pursue up to 15 different concentrations that we offer. And you always have in mind of how this impacts the greater community beyond yourself.
That's fantastic. And I love DQ. I think that is fantastic, a fantastic way to kind of, explain what you're doing. And
yeah, not only are these people that can change the world, but are they fun to hang out with at the same time? Are they good people? So yeah, it's a big part of who we are.
Yeah, it really resonates. Bruce, tell us about your MBA program at Yale.
Sure, happy to do that. And again, I think that obviously these are all fantastic programs. And I think when we talk about sort of the Yale experience, we always start with the mission of educating leaders for business and society. That was our founding mission. It dates back to the origins of the school. And it speaks to kind of the broad multi-sector approach that we have here at SOM in terms of wanting our graduates to have impact, not just in the private sector, but the public and nonprofit sectors as well. And I think that does inform the experience. I know we've talked a little bit about this in the past, and when you sort of come to Yale SOM, I think some of the things that are maybe a little bit unique is we really are very, very well integrated into the larger university. And so when you come to Yale SOM, you very much are coming to Yale, which I think is a great thing. And these are obviously all the schools here have wonderful universities in which they reside. And I think that's an important part of the experience. We also have our, I think, unique global approach, which I think is obviously incredibly relevant. Anybody who has any career, in the 21st century needs to have that global perspective in mind, even if you have a career that's nominally very local in nature. And then the last thing I think I would point to is our integrated curriculum, which is something that we are trying to sort of educate our graduates to be sort of broad, multidisciplinary thinkers. And so our integrated curriculum really does kind of align with the mission. I think all these things are meant to really support the mission and help our students and our graduates live out that mission in their lives and their careers. So those are the things I would point to from a Yale perspective.
Yeah, that's great. Cindy, what makes the Haas MBA stand out?
Well, I think I see a lot of themes here in business, right? Being able to educate leaders that are going to influence a lot of the big problems of the world, which I think is definitely true. At Berkeley Haas, we are the #1 public university in the world. So like the other programs, being able to take classes outside of the business program and be able to really use the flexibility of the program to take a lot of different top classes in a lot of the top graduate programs. I think also a large part of our program is our defining leadership principles, which really guide our entire program. So we look at that in admissions. It's something I've been working at Berkeley Haas for over 20 years. I know alums from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, when the defining leadership principles came out 10 years ago, but you see that in alumni from years back, so going beyond yourself, which is something that I think is really important in that public mission. Question the status quo, being able to think of doing things in new ways, confidence without attitude. So definitely having that humility, I think, is really important, and being a student always. So when you go into a room, knowing that you're not the person that's going to know everything, you're always going to be learning from other people. So I think that we really want to develop authentic, equity fluent leaders who are really able to, deal with those challenges of today, like sustainability, equity fluent leadership. I think that's really important.
Great. Let's get a sense of your newest cohort, newly admitted in either August or September. Cindy, why don't you start? So we're with you. How many did you bring in? Give us a sense of gender splits, international, some of the backgrounds, and whether you see any trends in that data that you'll reveal.
Yeah, so we entered in a class of 247. So it's a smaller class size. We're really excited about the diversity of the pool. We were able to, we have 46% women, which is our highest yield of women, which we're really excited about and want to continue that trajectory. We had a strong 41% international students from 45 different countries. So generally, that's a strong international pool, which is great. 45. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Is that a record as well? Your international?
No, we've ranged between 35 to 45. So it is a high number. And then 45% US minorities, 17% underrepresented minorities, and then 13% first generation college and 16% LGBTQ. So really happy with the class that we brought in this year.
That's great. And as always, they come from every industry background, every position.
Yeah.
Including sectors you might not even expect, like nonprofit, NGOs, et cetera. Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah.
Bruce, what does your class look like?
Sure, happy to share. We came in with a class of 347, which is we tend to be right around 345 to 350 range. Again, the profile of the class we think is incredibly strong. It's not terribly divergent from from Berkeley Haas in some key ways. So it's 43% women, 48% international passport holders, which is on the high end, coming from 48 different countries. We have, I think among the U.S. students, we're 54% students of color and 24% underrepresented students of color, which again are high, I think on the high end for us, which was great. We actually have, I think we're all, I guess not Allison, not Duke, I don't think, but I know Haas and Michigan, and we are members of the Consortium for Graduate Study Management. We actually had 39 incoming consortium students, which is 11% of the class, which we think is wonderful. And 17% of our students are first generation students, and I think that in that regard, our partnership with the Quest Bridge program has been very, very beneficial, and we've really enjoyed that, our first year of that. Looking forward to the second year. The demographic, the incoming class is 75% from private sector, but 25% from the public and nonprofit sectors, and a mix of sort of professional and academic backgrounds, although we were, I think, most represented by STEM majors this past year, which is unusual for us. And that's, I don't know if that's an industry trend, but it was, we did see the strong pool in among STEM majors. And so that was a little bit of a different profile for us coming in.
Now, Bruce, one of the things I always like is your blog posts that indicate the different and unusual backgrounds of your incoming students, whether they're classical musicians or circus performers or novelists or whatever. Did you do one this past year, and can you give us some highlights?
Oh gosh, I did do one this past year, and I want to try and remember some of the things I talked about.
Already,
huh? Let me see if I can. I did just do it, and oh gosh, I don't know if I can remember all the putting me on the spot. I'm trying to actually just pull it up, because I've kind of
you're already evaluating round one people and calling them up for interviews, I know.
yeah, no, I'll have to. I apologize. I'm just
oh, that's okay.
Let's see. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull it up quickly enough to not to bog down the whole.
Oh, we can move on then. That's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Back to it. Taya, how about Michigan Ross's new cohort?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. We have about 380 students, and we did have a couple of records. So we have 42% of the class is U.S. minority, and that is 23% are underrepresented minority as well. The other record I was pleasantly surprised about is we have a record number of MD MBAs in the class. So over like 15 different MD MBAs. Wow. That are wanted to add a dual degree onto their medical degree. Very ambitious. But I think that speaks to the interdisciplinary nature of the class. So excited about that. We did see an increase, a little bit of an increase in healthcare and impact backgrounds of people coming in. So the biggest is consulting. 19% of the class is coming from consulting, but right after that is healthcare. So 14% health or healthcare, 14% finance, and then 11% from nonprofits or education. So I do think it was a noticeable increase of people with health and healthcare and nonprofits background this year for us.
Yeah. What about first gen? Both, Haas and Yale had first gen. We see more and more schools reporting that number, and that's kind of a new statistics that I hadn't seen in years past. Do you have a first gen number?
Yeah, ours was a record too. So it was 14% first gen this year. We're excited. Our dean is actually a first generation college student. So she was really excited to see that stat. The class was basically here before she started, but I think that was something that meant a lot to her personally as well when she did a welcome for the class.
That's great. And at Duke, what did the new cohort look like?
Yeah, so this year we enrolled 399 students, and it's pretty much, it's slightly on the lower end of the average, but we've been between about 395 and 440 over the past 4 or 5 years. So in line with that. We had 48% women, which tied our record from last year. So holding strong at 48% and making great strides in gender equity. We have 43% minority students and 25% underrepresented minority students. We also saw a good showing from our international applicants, sort of depending on how you want to look at it. 39% of our class are strictly non-US citizenships, but those who are holding at least one foreign citizenship is 52% of the class. So we have very diverse groups coming in. We don't officially report the first generation college student stat because it's not a required field on our application, but I can tell you that my best estimate based on those who did self-report is around 15% of the class are first generation college students as well. So that's great to see. And I think in looking at backgrounds, it's really from all over. I think financial services, consulting, healthcare are those that we typically see, the prior industries, but we have students coming from so many different backgrounds that I don't think there's any one that you can say is a typical Fuqua student. Everybody comes from on their own path and all are welcome. So it's been a really fantastic class, super impactful group, and we're really, really excited for all they're going to achieve.
That's great. I'm going to ask you a funny question, but I think it could yield a good answer.
Okay.
Alice, what do you most appreciate about the students that come to Duke?
Oh gosh, it starts, you meet people through the application and you're like, these people feel like Team Fuqua, right? These feel like people who are going to make a difference and are going to be impactful. And it starts at orientation when our student life team, we sort of make the handoff from admissions to student life and immediate feedback of, you guys, these people are amazing. We're like, okay, we knew it. And it's so excited to see it. Like day one, they're like, I want to do this. I want to do that. Let me help admissions. How can I give back? And that immediate desire to help those coming behind them to repay what was paid for to them. It's fantastic. And it happens instantly. And it's always so exciting and so gratifying and so inspiring. So that's my favorite part on orientation, is just the immediate positive loop of feedback and that these folks are as great as we knew they were.
That's great. Tell you, what surprises you most about the MBA students in your new cohort?
I love the curiosity they have. I've been meeting with a few students just to hear about how their first year has gone and what they've been doing. And there's students in the past week I've talked to who are taking design classes at the School of Architecture or policy classes. I talked to one who's doing a Korean class because it means a lot to her to be brushing up on Korean and adding that into her curriculum a little bit. And so I think I'm always like very pleasantly surprised by that intellectual curiosity and that desire to have some of those interdisciplinary skills along with the traditional business curriculum.
Right. Bruce, what surprises you most about the MBA students that Yale attracts?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the things that Tay and Allison mentioned, I think they are, very other oriented and very much thinking about sort of the kind of impact that they want to have. And I think that is very uplifting and very energizing. But especially for this class, and I don't know if it's kind of coming off the pandemic and really returning more in person, the energy is just, they really want to dig in there and sort of interact and really take part. I think that's always emblematic of Yale classes. I'm probably sure many of our classes generally, but just the level to which that's the case this year seems particularly notable.
Yeah. And Cindy, I see you nodding your head to all of these descriptions by your colleagues at other schools. Anything to add?
Only thing I would add, so we had a lunch with our Forte fellows and our Forte members yesterday on campus. So being able to connect with the incoming class as they've started their journey. And I totally agree that they are just really excited about being in person. We're just having so many more things happening. And I just think they also really want to change things. They want to do something different, be able to do everything. I think that's one of the things of fear of missing out, which can be a problem in business school, but I think they are really energetic, as Bruce said.
If someone is in the position of being in their mid to late 20s and they know they want an MBA degree, but they have a good job and they just got a promotion or a pay raise, what would you tell them to convince them to come to Duke?
Well, I think the MBA is a long-term investment. It's not just what am I going to be doing at graduation. It's what am I going to be doing 20 years from now. And I think that the approach of strategy, of decision making, as well as the network that you build while you're in the MBA program, sets you up for a lifetime of success in your career. So if you're comfortable now, you've just gotten a promotion, it could, in a couple of years, the economy could change, things would change. The MBA prepares you to be able to pivot in those unforeseen circumstances. If your life changes, if the world changes, if your interests change, the MBA is going to set you up for that wherever the world may take you. So I think building that skill set, as well as building that network to be able to have others support you if you need to make that change, is where the value of the MBA really comes in.
So Cindy, Allison convinced me to really start looking at MBA programs. Now I want you to tell me why I shouldn't be deterred by the price tags on full-time MBA programs today.
Yes, it definitely is an investment in time and in money, but I think that it definitely is worthwhile. There are a number of scholarship opportunities available at schools, and I think that that's an important part of the process, and being able to look at your own personal finance plan and how to afford it. But it is going to be a lifelong connection and services that you have. You are a Haas alum forever, and also those networks, being able to have your summer internship and the different projects, you're working while you're going through your MBA and all of these different opportunities, and it just really will set you up. So worth the price tag over the long term after a few years.
Okay, Taya, I'm in product management at Google, and I want to become a venture capitalist. Convince me that I can go to your program and become a VC.
Well, I think I'd start with, we actually had a higher number of people interning in VC organizations this summer than we've seen in the last several years. And there's a number of ways that we set you up for a career pivot. So you have some core skills as a product manager, but you don't have to be a product manager to make a pivot. You are going to need a number of things that some good networking skills and some things that are going to come with business school as well. But we have something called a fact group at Ross, which is a small group where you get to pick the function that you're interested in. And so you could choose to be in a VC fact group, and that's going to be led by a second-year student who just interned in that area, and is going to help you along the way, give you tips, they have a full curriculum that they work with our career development office to say, here's what you need to do. The hustle you need to have to make it in that particular area. And then the other thing I'd say is our Zell Lurie Institute helps a lot with securing internships, like while you're a business school student. And the city of Detroit has a ton going on. We actually have a partnership, so a lot of students can intern with VC organizations in Detroit while they're for their summer internship as well. So that in particular has been a great resource for our students that want to make that pivot.
That's great. So, okay, so Allison convinced me that it's a long-term investment and I should think of it that way. Cindy convinced me that there's a lot of scholarship money out there to offset the high price tags on MBAs. Taya, you convinced me that I could actually make the leap from Ross, from product management to venture capital. Now, Bruce, I want you to convince me that, people tell me there are too many MBAs already, that the penetration is high, that the degree is no longer as unusual or unique as it used to be. So really, am I just better off staying at Google and waiting around for the next promotion, or do I really go for this?
Yeah, I was wondering how I was going to fit in here with the. So I was nervous what this was going to be. I think I would take it full circle, and I don't know, hopefully I'm not freezing. I would take it full circle back to Allison. I think it gets back and touching on what Cindy and Taya all spoke to. It's not about the next job. It's about what your ceiling is and elevating that ceiling. And to Allison, Allison, if you just got a promotion, if you're doing well, I didn't hear her saying, come now. I think she said, come when you're ready. And it might not be right now. It might be, I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still my salary is increasing. but what's your ceiling, what's your upper limit, what's your potential, and how best can you achieve that? And I think that's again where the MBA comes in. And it's a market-driven degree. I think there will be, the ROI is still strong, the hiring is still strong, and that's because there's still sort of demand in the marketplace for MBAs, for people who can do a whole range of things that have a positive impact, but whether it's a product manager at Google, whether it's a venture capitalist, whether it's someone in the in the social sector or the public sector, or consulting or healthcare, whatever it is, the demand is still there. And I think there still are sort of pockets of areas where, I was just talking to someone who wants to again go into the public sector and go be back on the hill. And there's some people have business backgrounds. I think more people maybe need them, and so there are still areas where there are growth opportunities for MBAs. So I think to the extent that the hiring numbers and the demand is still there, I think that shows that it's still a valued degree.
Absolutely, it's worth pointing out that starting compensation levels, which are only the beginning, and even though they're too often used to justify ROI on the MBA, because it really is a long-term gain that you're going to get here, are at record or near record levels. So is placement. And if anything, there are signs in the marketplace that the numbers are going up, particularly from the consulting firms that are trying to get more MBA talent and fight off the tech firms that are offering equity. So, there is a scramble for talent. And there is tremendous respect and admiration for the business schools that produce and nurture and cultivate that talent, and that's not going away. But I wanted each of you to address specific issues in the marketplace that I think many people have thought are behind the decline in domestic applications in particular. And with many people predicting the possibility of a recession, we know that applications to business schools are countercyclical, and that in a recession, they go up fast. And what we've been telling people is, hey, now is the time to apply before that happens. Look, I know all of you have a surplus of superb, exceptional candidates. And therefore, the bench strength in your applicant pool is incredibly strong. But every little thing in your favor right now, with applications from domestic applicants in decline, go for it. That's what I'm telling everyone, really. And it is a long-term investment, and it is a way to pivot and change your career. And there's tremendous amounts of scholarship money and fellowship money out there to offset the price tag. And as Bruce said, look, there's still great market demand. There really isn't an oversupply of MBAs from the top schools in management positions in the US or in the world. This is not a mature degree. It is a no-brainer investment. End of speech for me. Bruce, what are you really looking for, and how has it changed over the years? I know one thing when I look at the Yale numbers is you're more accepting of GRE scores, and that's totally understandable because more people are taking the GRE instead of the GMAT. And the GRE historically has attracted a more diverse range of candidates. So it seems to fit in very neatly with initiatives to diversify the student population. But what are you generally looking for? And can you tell us something that someone won't find on your website? Because you have a very good website, you provide lots of advice. But I wonder, what does your eye first go to when you receive an application?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it is true. I think all of us have, adopted the GRE. And I think probably for a lot of schools, it's about a third to maybe 40% of our class are GRE test takers. I think that really has somewhat democratized things on the test taking front, and it allowed us to kind of reach a broader pool, which was the reason behind accepting it in the first place. But in our kind of sort of our mindset at Yale is, don't overthink it. So, we look at the things. So when you ask what other than the obvious things, we look at the obvious things, and we look at tests, we look at your academic record, we look at your professional background. Those are the big things. And we're not trying to be sort of outthink ourselves or overthink things. But I think we do one aspect. I don't know if this is exactly answering a question, but we do, a number of years ago, we did implement an element of our application called our behavioral assessment, which is something that you take after you hit the submit button, but it's really meant to sort of inform the other aspects of the application and think about, these are kind of, things like grades and scores, get at sort of cognitive traits, and the behavioral assessment gets at non-cognitive traits that will help inform our sense of your performance and trying to even further broaden the pool of applicants we can look at. So someone who might have more modest profile in terms of grade and scores, we use the behavioral assessment to try to understand sort of secondary and tertiary traits that might help us identify people who would do very well, but might not pop in terms of more traditional metrics. And so I think that's maybe not something that you would look at on our class website, or that you would even see in the application, because it's something you take after you hit the submit button. But it definitely does inform our evaluation and gives us, hopefully allows us to be even broader, be even more expansive in terms of how we're looking at candidates, and continue to move, lean less on sort of those traditional metrics, not that they're unimportant, but to really think about a much broader range of skills and traits that would help us identify successful students and then successful alumni.
Now, tell us specifically how you evaluate behavioral traits.
Well, it is largely through. I mean, we could certainly do a deeper dive. I know that's not the purpose of how we structure the questions in the application and things like the interview, and trying to get at sort of behavioral situations to identify those kinds of traits, and have it being less about sort of how you describe yourself and more about sort of the behaviors that you've exhibited that display what your qualities are. But so that's one aspect of the application. The behavioral assessment is very specifically, I won't go into it, but it actually asks you to answer a number of questions that are about how you interact in the world, and then it's computer scored, which I think is very nice, because it doesn't depend on subjective human interaction or human rating to come up with an assessment, which I think we feel is very consistent and very fair across candidates in a lot of ways. So that's an important aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and you pioneered this assessment in partnership with one of the standardized test companies, right?
With ETS, exactly. We did this with ETS. It started maybe eight or so years ago, and we've been doing this for maybe I think five plus years. We've actually had that as part of our process.
Have any other schools adopted that approach, to your knowledge?
Is that to me? I'm not aware. I think that ETS is looking to sort of bring on others. I think there are some schools that are in sort of pilot phase of some programs, but I don't know that anybody's actually brought it to market in the way that we have yet. It's meant, as a side, I don't want to monopolize. It's been used by them mostly for professional development in that context, and that it was actually, the instrument was developed in particular for that context, and we worked with ETS to sort of reorient it for the admissions context. So it's a new use for this instrument, but I imagine other schools might well be adopting it at some point in the future. And then not just MBA, but other programs as well, maybe undergraduate, maybe other professional degrees.
Yep, exactly. Allison, what are the secrets of your selection process?
Well, I think that anytime I open an application, like Bruce said, there's the standard, we need to review the resume and look at your academic history. But I think everyone on our team, when reading an application, is sort of holding their breath until they get to our 25 things essay, which is just really central to what makes Team Fuqua. And I think it can be frustrating because I can't tell you should do X, Y, and Z, and you'll have a good list of 25 things. But through that, which is designed to be deeply personal, that's where DQ really shines through in the stories that you tell and how you tell them and what your values are and what is important to you. It really comes across in that essay. And so it's really fun to read. It's like you're sitting down with like a short story. And by the end of it, when you have read it and you feel like you know that person, that's when you know if they're a fit with Team Fuqua. So it needs to be authentic. It cannot be curated by others. Like, you can't pull something from a bunch of smart websites, because it needs to be you. The authenticity is key. And I think authenticity is another one where you can't tell someone how to do it, but you know it when you see it. I think everybody in this call knows it when they see it. But that essay in particular is the one that lets us get to know you as a human. And that's the one that for me is really, really the big lever in the entire process. And then we want to see that same personality, those same values that we've read about in those essays reflected in the interview, so that it is consistent, and having that consistency supports the authenticity and helps us feel confident that is who they present themselves to be, is who they are, and we know that they're going to fit here.
I love that essay question. And, we've done surveys of admission consultants in the past who put that essay question way at the top among their favorites as well. And when Sherry Hubert, I guess your boss,
Yes.
actually came to Duke, I love that she actually did it and made it public for herself, because I think that's a really incredibly revealing and wonderful way to get to know someone.
Yes, we do it for all of our new hires. So when everybody comes on board, they share their list of 25 things with the team. And even in that personal setting, it's like, oh, I did not know that your parents had an Australian Shepherd farm. I have 2 Australian Shepherds, and it forms new bonds among team members on our staff. So it is a deeply revealing essay, and it's really, really fun to read.
Cindy, what are the 25 things we should know about you? No, just kidding. Cindy, shed some light on your selection process at Haas.
Yeah, I think in the application process, very similarly, obviously we have to look at all of the professional experience and make sure people are able to academically perform in the program. But for us on the admissions committee at Berkeley Haas, I think that fit with our culture and our defining leadership principles is super important. And it's not that I have to say, oh, I go beyond myself because I do this, like directly in the application. It's really about the stories that you share. And so kind of taking off of what Allison was saying in authenticity, which I think is really important in the holistic application process, I think that I really want to see, how is this person going to show up in the classroom and outside the classroom? So looking at the community involvement, the extracurricular involvement they may have had, maybe even an undergrad, but also our essay questions really, again, are trying to allude to what makes you tick, what's important to you. So what makes you feel alive when you're doing it has been our question for a number of years. And it actually was an icebreaker question that we had for AdCom one time, and we learned a lot from each other. So we're like, let's use that as our essay question. And I think it's been like 3 or 4 years we've been using it. So it really allows us to understand a little bit deeper about what is important to someone and what makes them tick.
Yeah, that's great. Taya, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think we're going to have to make our essays icebreakers for new members of the team. That's one takeaway from today. But I don't know how everybody would feel about that. So when I think about what we're looking at in our application, it's back to that experiential learning. The people who thrive in that environment are people who are comfortable, are adaptable and comfortable with ambiguity, and have a lot of those traits. And when we certainly will look for that in your resume and your recommendation, but some of that does come through in the interview and your essays. So our essays are structured so, we understand they ask questions like, I was challenged when, or I was aware I was different when, I was out of my comfort zone when. And so people have a choice. We don't want everyone to have the same 1 or 2 traits. That would be very boring for us and for the class. But I think it helps us understand, when that you do take risks, and that you are, you do go out of your comfort zone, and maybe how you reacted, or, what you were humbled when, how you took that situation and how you handled it and learned from it. And so there's a lot of ways to answer those things, but they help us get at some of those key areas where we see students be successful when they have some of those key traits.
Yeah, that's really good. And we have a question, and I want to put it out there because I think it's an interesting question that involves the most overpopulated part of the applicant pool. software engineers from India, men in particular. And we know that every applicant pool has a lot of them, and it's very hard for someone to differentiate themselves in that crowd. And it's very, very competitive. And after all, each of you are trying to craft as diverse a class as possible, so you can't possibly overpopulate your classes with software engineers from India. Nonetheless, and I don't know if these stats are correct, but there's someone who's asking Cindy, last year your school had received more than 200 applications from India. I don't know how they know that. I don't know if it's true, but only 8 to 10 were selected, and all of them are from IITs. So I would have to guess that that is incorrect on the face of it, because there's no way that someone would be able to know those numbers. Cindy, am I right?
Yes, that's correct. But I will say that, yeah, when we look at our number of admits in our current class, India is we have the most from India in particular, because it is our largest country. So sometimes that tends to happen, but we don't have quotas for how many, and it tends to vary each year. But it just so happens that this year we do have the most of our international population are from India.
Okay, thank you. Last question for all of you. What do you see in this coming admission cycle? So we're pretty much through with round one. Duke always has an early action round as well. Are you thinking we're going to see applications be flat? You think it's impossible to predict given the uncertainty in the economy with the war in the Ukraine, inflation, and God knows what else is going to happen? Bruce, what do you think how this is going to play out, this latest admission cycle?
Yeah, I'm glad you gave me the out to say it's impossible to predict, because I thank you for sort of socializing that as an option. I do. I mean, I think I can say for round one, we were, I don't know if other schools, we saw a decline from last year's round one, but last year's, I'm not sure whether that's this year's round one is catching up to last year's round 2 and 3, and then we'll be flat for the rest of the year, or what that looks like. I do think, I do think it's going to be, it'll depend on so many different variables that it's impossible to know right now. My sense is it's probably going to be roughly on par with last year, and I think what that means is, John, to your earlier point, I think it's probably a good time to apply. You don't want to, not to be market timers on the applicant front, but you want to think about not where things are now, but where things are going, where they're going to be, and how to position yourself for the future, which has kind of been a theme. And so I think thinking about that and thinking about your individual circumstances in the context of a pool that maybe is a little bit more accessible than has been in the past, although obviously still very competitive. I think, my best guess is we're probably going to be kind of in the range of last year.
Yeah, and I think all of you would say it's still going to be very competitive. It always is. My rough estimate of what I think happens in MBA admissions at this level is that 80% of the people who apply are fully qualified to actually get in and do well in your programs, and yet only a small fraction of them can actually be admitted because the MBA programs are that selective, and that's just the way it is. And that's also why employers so eagerly snap up your graduates, because they know that your selection processes are really very, very good. Well, listen, I want to thank each and every one of you for a great session. I knew I threw a few curveballs at you this session, but I think you guys handled it really well. I'm impressed. And I'm telling you, I'm a product manager at Google, and I'm going to go and get my MBA because all of you convinced me it's a no-brainer investment. Bruce, Cindy, Taya, and Allison, thank you so much for a great session. Really appreciate it. And it's always good to see smiling faces, enthusiastic, passionate people, advocates for what I consider to be a no-brainer degree. Always fun. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Good to see everyone.
And for all of you out there, thanks for watching. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. See you soon.